All right, so yeah, I'm sure you get asked all the time in terms of marijuana and everything, and so that's legalization of it. Do you see anything else though? Because one of the biggest problems in Florida is the fact we have so many people in jail, and a lot of those people are in jail, non-criminal, offenses. A lot of them are drug dealers, marijuana offenses. So, you answered one part of it. Is there anything else you could see, though, in terms of decriminalization, in terms of de-emphasizing things like that? What would you try to do on that side of the issue?
Yeah, so I think in the grand scheme of things in our criminal justice system here in this state, marijuana is obviously not our biggest problem. We're at a point in the state where medicinal marijuana is now legal. Obviously, Floridians, voted in favor of that, and so I think folks that get arrested for possession of marijuana, they should, often in many cases, be placed into some type of a diversion program, things like that. We are spending a lot of taxpayer resources trying to crack down on marijuana. I don't see it as one of our biggest problems. I mean, obviously we have to tackle the drug dealers and make sure we put them away, the big time drug dealers. But we have so many problems, and I think marijuana is not one of our biggest ones.
Here, that was good. Oh, that's great. Can you just step back one step?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let me do this. Come back over this way.
All
We
right.
actually might change locations too in a second to get a variety of shots. But
Okay.
I like this.
Yeah.
So okay, I'm with you on that. It's not the biggest issue, but in total, I mean, you're a millennial running for office. This issue's changed. People's opinions on this has changed a tremendous amount. Do you think anybody should be in a state prison because they got arrested with a weed charge? I mean, do you think that should happen?
I guess that you could have circumstances where a drug dealer is trafficking in major amounts of marijuana and it's affecting, a lot of people. I think in circumstances like that.
Well, the
with
dealer's
major-
obviously. The dealer's
Yeah.
obviously. But I'm talking about if you're a guy. Because I used to intern at the public defender's office when I was in college. And you would sit there, and no kidding, 40% of the people that would come into the bond hearings were some guy that had been arrested with, whatever, I don't even know, an ounce, whatever of
Yeah.
marijuana.
Yeah. I think in simple possession cases like that, I think that's ridiculous. To waste that kind of taxpayer resources to hold someone like that in state prison for a simple possession of marijuana charge, I think that's ridiculous. I don't think that's a wise use of taxpayer dollars. And I don't think that's a wise use of law enforcement's resources either, when they could be using those resources to do good police work, to keep our people safe. And I just think that's silly to put them in state prison over a simple marijuana charge.
Okay, so there's a lot of other issues that are very important as well. The death penalty is one that if you became Attorney General, you'd have to have an opinion on, because you'd be in the clemency hearings as a part of the cabinet, and you'd be one of 3 people that would make a decision on life or death in the state of Florida, which is a pretty heady thing to do as a 32-year-old man for anybody. But my broader question is, what's your view on the death penalty? If you did get on the cabinet, what would your vote be on those issues?
So, I've said over and over again in this campaign that on the death penalty, as a matter of policy, what our office would do is we would review these cases on a case-by-case basis. I am not going to take the approach that the state attorney in Orlando did and issue a blanket policy of never pursuing the death penalty. It is an available remedy on the books under Florida law, and we would evaluate each case on its own facts. And so that would be the policy of our office. Of course, the Attorney General's office doesn't get that many cases where the death penalty is at stake. They're big drug trafficking cases and things like that, typically not murder prosecution. So it doesn't come up as often as in the state attorney's office.
But in terms of your being on the cabinet, though, your position would be you'd look at it as a case-by-case basis. So you're not saying that I'm against the death penalty, and I would vote against the death penalty in every case. That's a legitimate position that a lot of people hold.
Yeah.
You're saying no. Actually, I'm in favor of the death penalty in certain cases.
Well, what I'm saying is that I have personal reservations about it. but it is, as a matter of state policy, it's an available remedy on the books, and I don't feel that I'm in a position to issue a blanket policy of never pursuing it in any case. We would handle those in the clemency board on a case-by-case basis, as well as cases that come into the Attorney General's office for prosecution.
Okay, so, but on another issue, in terms of the healthcare law, for example, the Affordable Care Act, if, as the Attorney General, you could have discretion on how you wanted to follow through. You could order your office not to. Pam Bondi made a decision to go after it and say, well, we don't want this law, filing a friend of the court brief in opposition to it. So the Attorney General can make kind of decisions about policy in the state. So on the healthcare, what would your view on that be? Would you reverse what Pam Bondi's done on the Affordable Care Act?
And I think that Mrs. Bondi, first of all, let me just say that I'm real big in this campaign on having our own message. We're running our own campaign with our own ideas and our own proposals. But to address the issue with Mrs. Bondi, I think that she has inserted the Attorney General's office in some very political issues that the Attorney General has typically not been very involved in. And in many ways, she has successfully turned the Attorney General's office into a right-wing political machine. I think overall, the Attorney General's office should not be that political. The job of the Attorney General is to protect our consumers from crime and from being ripped off, and to protect all of our people. It's not supposed to be that political, and she has politicized it. But I'll answer your question on the Affordable Care Act. It's just a matter of policy. I was in favor of the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act is obviously not perfect. The Republicans challenged it in court, and it was upheld by a pretty conservative Supreme Court. I think it is a step in the right direction. The problem that I have with the Affordable Care Act is that it has not made premiums as affordable as they should have been. And I think the reason for that is that they're trying to get enough votes in the Congress, and to get the bill through, they couldn't crack down on the insurance companies and regulate the insurance companies like they really needed to. So unfortunately, the affordable policies that are available, a lot of those have very high deductibles and so forth, and it's just still not providing affordable health insurance for many people. And it needs to be, I don't think it needs to be repealed, I think it needs to be amended and fixed.
Okay, but it sounds like you say de-emphasize the political aspects of the Attorney General's office. Now, if you won, 95% chance there's going to be a Democratic governor at the same time, probably. So, but maybe not.
Let's hope so.
Well, Florida isn't known for split ticket voting that much, I imagine. So if you win, probably there'll be a Democratic administration in Tallahassee. That means that you guys could have the potential to really leave a pretty lasting impact in the state. But my question is, would you have a progressive agenda? Because it sounds like, well, maybe, but really what I want to do is I want to depoliticize it, and I want to, kind of call balls and strikes. I mean, a lot of Democrats may not like that message.
Yeah. It's interesting because I see our agenda as really just common sense, and I think many Floridians will see our agenda as common sense, whether it's going after sex traffickers or holding big pharmaceutical companies accountable, or making sure that our students aren't getting ripped off by lenders, holding payday lenders accountable, and making sure they're not ripping off our people. I see that as common sense. Some people say, oh, that's a very progressive agenda. I see it as just protecting Florida's consumers. I don't see that as a Democratic or Republican agenda. It's just the right thing to do for our Attorney General.
Okay, I got a couple more questions for you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We might change spots, too, here in a second, because I don't want it just to be in front of this sign.
Okay.
Let's move.